Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bay Bolts channel. We are unfortunately going to talk about a loss today. And Jake, did you know this? The sky is falling. A 4-0 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Michael. And if you looked on Lightning Twitter, it probably would seem like the sky is falling right now. But hopefully, in this breakdown, we can put some Bolts fans at ease a little bit because while the game was not great last night or tonight, but um, it wasn't the end of the world. And I hope we can talk a little about that in this video.
It wasn't really the end of the world. You're actually absolutely right. The one thing that I think a lot of people were concerned with, we could just start with right off the bat, was the energy level. You know, you've got a team that's coming off of being out for essentially a week with no games. So you would think they would be extremely rested. Meanwhile, you've got the Carolina Hurricanes who actually played the night before against Chicago, and there were 8 goals in that game, which means it was a high octane, high offensive game. Uh, just my personal opinion, I know that a lot of people were saying, "Oh, they look rusty." Well, yeah, that's their Lightning style. The Lightning put rest and rust together. Like that's just how it goes. So I'm not really surprised by the effort that they put in. For half the game, they looked fine. For the other half, I would expect them to be a little bit better next time. But I think I saw on Twitter while I was covering the game, somebody was like, yeah, they're going to be playing better if it's the third game in 4 nights than they are if they're going to have a week off. That's just the way the Lightning operate.
Yeah, I said something similar myself when I was on Twitter talking to people, but because it's true and it's really weird the way that works for the Lightning. But it seems every time they have about 4 or 5 days or more off, they can't get their feedback under them in that first game. They have to get used to it again and figure out what they're doing. And most teams aren't that way. Most teams will, thrive on the rest and be ready to go and have much more energy than the people expected from last night. So that was definitely something. It's been a concern for the Lightning for a while now. It just seems like whenever there's an extended period, so we see this after All-Star breaks, and it's especially tough this season with so many games getting postponed. That's something that's out of the Lightning's control. So they're always getting these long gaps on them now, which has not boded well for them for the last couple of years that I can remember. So it's definitely making things a lot more difficult. How you fix that, I don't know. That's something that's really a mentality thing. So that's something Coach Cooper's got to try to pound into those guys. Like you got to be ready to go when you have these large gaps. But they obviously were not ready to go last night, and it showed. But this is something that we've come to expect from the Lightning when they have extended periods of time off.
Yeah, and I think one of those players that suffered the most from it was Alex Killorn. You know, big props to Killorn. At his 600th game in a Lightning sweater, was the sixth player in Lightning history to get that done, which I find very impressive. Behind Marty St. Louis, Vincent Lecavalier, Victor Hedman, Pavel Kubina, which is a name a lot of people wouldn't expect, and Steven Stamkos. Unfortunately, his 600th game was not one to remember. He was one of the main catalysts of, I think, the Lightning's biggest problem in this game, besides the defensive turnovers. We'll get to the defensive turnovers because they were aplenty. But the biggest problem for the Lightning tonight was being too unselfish. And or that like that doesn't seem like it makes sense. Being too selfless, like why would that be a problem? Well, when you're playing a good team like Carolina Hurricanes, who have, in my opinion, one of the best defensive six in the NHL, you have to shoot the puck when you have the opportunities. And there were countless times, whether it was Killorn, whether it was Blake Coleman, whether it was the defenseman, that they just didn't shoot the puck when they had the opportunity. They were looking for the passing lane. And it was very reminiscent of the Lightning team from 2016, 2017, where they would always look for the open shot. They would always look for that perfect passing play instead of putting the puck on the net. You hear it so many times. The Lightning say, we want to put pucks on that. We want to put pucks on that. Jamel Smith, during his, I believe it was post game interview during the last game against the Panthers, It's like, I'm just looking to use my speed to put pucks on net. That's why the fourth line has been so successful, is because they're just trying to generate opportunities. Whereas these other three lines are trying to find the perfect passing play to get a wide open net. It's a formula that's not going to work for you, especially when you're gifted golden opportunities and pass them up against good defensive teams like Carolina.
Yeah, there's a difference between finding the perfect play and executing it right and just passing too much. I often give the Lightning a lot of credit because they are really good at, putting the puck in places where it gives the goalie no chance to stop it. It is something that they're very good at. But this happens a lot to the Lightning. When you're doing that, it can often happen where you're just making too many. Three, maybe four passes on a rare occasion is probably as much as you need. After that, you should be shooting the puck and put it on net. The Lightning tendency have to do it. They'll pass the puck 5 or 6 times before they even take a shot, and that was big last night. They've been getting better a little bit. I don't think it was too bad this season so far, but this is the first game where I really noticed it. Like you mentioned, Blake Coleman, there was a play where I think it was like a 3-on-2, and he's coming down that left side, got the puck, and had an open lane, but decided to throw it back across to get an even wider open net. But you've got to take that shot, go for the rebound. It's, as the saying goes, put the puck on net and good things will happen. They did not do that last night at all, which is a part of the problem. Again, like you said, if you don't put the puck on net, you're not going to generate chances. So the Lightning did have, I believe, more shots on goal last night than the Carolina Hurricanes did. But as Dave Randolph said on the broadcast, they weren't all high quality danger chances. So even despite them having a lot of shots, there was a lot of more shots that they could have taken that were higher quality probably, but they just kept going for that extra pass. And sometimes, Michael, that also turns into turnovers, which was probably the biggest problem for the Lightning in this game, because honestly, even though on the scoreboard it was 4-0, without some of these turnovers, this could have been another game just like the first game we played against Carolina. It could have been a 1-0 overtime kind of game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to make a quick correction. The shots were actually 28-24 in favor of Carolina. Carolina actually outshot the Lightning in the third period, which I'm not really a fan of if you look at how the Lightning were playing in that third period. But you're exactly right. The turnovers in the defensive zone were absolutely horrible. Braden Point, I commend him for having a ton of effort in this game. He really looked like he was trying to bring the Lightning back from the edges of despair, especially when they were down 2-0. But he was turning the puck over way too much, especially in the defensive zone. That led to the second goal of the game, which I think was the Sebastian Aho goal. You can't have that happen. The turnover in the defensive zone led to the Cedric Paquette goal. No, that's not the team that you think he would score for, but Cedric Paquette scored against the Lightning. It's tough because you look at it as a defensive game. I thought the Lightning had an okay type of game. Vasilevsky was stellar for a lot of this game. Don't let the shots and the goals dictate how he actually played. But you also look at the fact that they turned the puck over way too much in the defensive zone, whether it was Braden Point, whether it was Mikhail Sergachev. The fourth line did have a bad turnover in the defensive zone that led to that third goal. That's the stuff that I think most fans are wondering when that's going to get cleaned up, because that's the type of thing that is going to cost you games. Maybe you can get away with the I'm not going to pass, or I'm going to pass it too much. Maybe you can get away with the fact that maybe your effort's not 100% tonight. But if you continually turn the puck over in the defensive zone, you're asking your goaltender to be superhuman. And I love Andre Vasilevsky, but last night he was not superhuman. It's impossible to ask your goalie to be that every single night. We saw that again versus Florida in the last game. I understand Curtis McLean wasn't that good, but there were way too many turnovers and way too sloppy of a defensive system for that to work.
if Curtis McElhinney was in net tonight, the score could have been a lot higher. Let's just say that much. Uh,
Yeah.
but the problem with the turnovers too, it wasn't like just turnovers in the offensive zone and then there was a slow breakout back and Carolina just had the puck. Some of the turnovers were either right on the blue line or just coming out of the Bolts offensive zone, which created these 2-on-1 breakaway opportunities. And when you give a breakaway opportunity to a guy like Sebastian Aho, he is going to make you pay. He made a beautiful move to get right past Vasilevsky, and Vasi had no chance on that play whatsoever. I think two of the goals that were scored tonight, Vasi really just had no chance because they were such, great opportunities for Carolina, and you just can't do that. Paquette got left open in the middle of the ice because of the turnover there. Lightning players were obviously not ready, had to quickly try and readjust and weren't able to. So yeah, turnovers were the killer for the Bolts in this game. It could have been a lot closer if it wasn't for those, despite not having a great game overall. But Michael, I do think we need to talk about some of the positives because while this game stunk, and it did, and it's tough to lose against good teams like this. Carolina is a very good team. Don't get me wrong. They are a great team. Obviously, there's a reason they're up there and now ahead of us in points. They've got just about a similar record to us as well. But this was expected a little bit. We talked about we know the Lightning team does this after days of rest, but to the Lightning's credit, they always do find ways to readjust things. So I fully expect them to bounce back.
I fully expect them to bounce back as well. The one thing that I would say that I thought was the biggest positive from this game was the fourth line. Once again, just absolutely incredible work ethic. Jamel Smith, Alexander Volkov, Patrick Maroon. I think that Patrick Maroon is slowly rubbing off on Jamel Smith because we knew that Jamel Smith had a feisty side to him. He almost destroyed Cedric Paquette after getting a high stick to the face. That, oh, by the way, went uncalled, but we'll leave it at that. And he didn't. It was sort of misplaced anger because Paquette wasn't the one that hit him in the face, but Smith has been getting run this entire season when he's been getting played, and he's never been getting a call. And I think that is what is making Jamel Smith angry. Well, I know you and I are different on this, but I love the fire and the passion, especially when you're down by multiple goals. I know you have the opportunity to possibly put your team at a disadvantage, but you kind of need that. It's sort of like getting in a fight when your team is down. You kind of need that, spark and energy. Volkov, again, generating so many chances. Guys, please, if you did not read my article down in Baybolt for the Puck Network, I talked about how the first two games or the last two games of the Florida series sort of exemplified Alexander Volkov's growth and confidence. And this was another prime game of why that's the case. He was always in front of the net. He was always generating scoring chances. Full credit to Alexander Nedeljkovic, who was great in net for Carolina. I mean, he let in 0 goals, but especially against that fourth line, he was stellar. And then Patrick Maroon being Patrick Maroon. What are you going to do? They were easily the best line for the Lightning. I'm very excited to see how that line is going to continue to progress this season.
I will link that article down in the description for anybody who wants to check it out. So they go in there and click that. You can find a bunch of other stuff too in our description. But you're right, Michael. The fourth line was absolutely fantastic. They've been great for the last couple of games too, which is really nice to see. They've been the one consistent. I thought the penalty kill, even though it wasn't out there very much, was also solid. That just seems like for the Bolts is always a constant positive for them, which is always good to have something like that. I think the penalty kill continues to shine, which is good to see because the Bolts have a tendency sometimes to do take a lot of penalties, although it has been better as of late. And I do love the fire for Jamel Smith, and I love the physicality element to me. What worried me at least from last night when I was watching the game, it seemed like he was really angry and trying to throw some extra punches, which sometimes can get you called an extra penalty. So you do want to be careful with that, especially when you're already down as well. Things could just get even worse. You don't get the chance to possibly come back because you're shorthanded for 2 minutes. But you do want to be obviously stand up for yourself and be physical. That's all great. It's just something you got to make sure you're not doing it too much, which obviously he did it because they didn't even call a penalty on the high stick. So obviously the refs weren't calling very much last night. But I digress. But yeah, and so that's the thing there, Michael. So there's some positive out of this game. There were a lot of negatives out of this game, but this was only the Lightning's fourth regulation loss on the season. They have 10 wins already. They're still playing very good. They're up at the top of the division. I know you might say, well, there's a couple teams ahead of them now. I think I can't remember exactly, but the third, fourth place. But remember, they've only played 15 games at this point. So they're still behind in games played. They have a lot more to make up. And I guarantee you, like we've said with these series, the team that loses that first game is going to come out with a even much bigger fire under them, ready to go, ready to play. And I fully expect to see that from the Lightning. I've given them so much credit about making adjustments and fixing things that they've seen go wrong, and they definitely will. So listen, some teams will go on 2-game losing streaks almost every other week. The Lightning, this is the first time the Lightning have lost the 2 games in a row this entire season, which is, very, very impressive for them. So there is by no means no time to panic. These games are going to happen. It's very frustrating. I think Lightning fans have just kind of become a little spoiled because we've won so much in the last couple of years. We just won the Stanley Cup, which is awesome. But I think people's expectations do get a little too high. And don't get me wrong, again, you've got to be hard on your team, and we want them to be better, obviously, which is why we started off with so many negatives in this video. But only the fourth regulation loss for the Bolts. They still have 3 other games against Carolina, and that's going to be the real test here, Michael. You also wrote an article on why this series was going to be so important for the Bolts and a big test for them, because Carolina is a very good team. We're really going to see how this works. It's almost like you could think of this as a playoff series right now, because we're playing 4 games in a row. So it's going to be really important to see how the Bolts are able to bounce back. If they're able to come back and possibly even win this series against Carolina, or even just split it at this point, that's a very positive sign and shows me that this team is obviously still where I expect them to be and know them to be, because it's going to be a long series, and these are going to be tough series. You're going to lose some of these games. You just can't win them all.
Yeah, exactly. And, the Lightning are currently 4th in their division, 3rd if you go by points percentage, because Chicago has somehow already played almost 20 games. But bringing it back to the point that really matters, guys, this is an ongoing process. You can't expect to win every single game. You can't expect to look good every single game, even in the games that you maybe look good and you don't win, or maybe the games that you don't look great and you still find a way to pull out the victory. Full credit to Carolina. They're a really, really good team. I talked about in the article how they might be the best team in the division, even with both teams at full strength, not counting Nikita Kucherov because he's out for the season, but with Anthony Cirelli.
We didn't even mention we're without Nikita Kucherov and Anthony Cirelli, which, I don't want to make too many excuses, but that's a big factor for the Bolts as well.
No excuses. Like, the Lightning are struggling right now when it comes to their injury situation. They're without Cirelli, they're without Stevens, they're without Kucherov. But you have to understand that, the Carolina is a really good team. Florida has become a really good team. This division is not a joke. Like, the Lightning are going to struggle at times. And we as fans have to be aware of that. We have to be ready for that. I did expect a little bit more of a competitive game between the two teams in the first meeting, and that unfortunately did not live up to the hype of their 1-0 overtime game. But they do have another opportunity to figure it out on Monday. So that is going to do it for us, unless, Jake, you have anything else for us.
Nope, that just about does it. I think that, again, that's the keys to this season are going to be how the Lightning are able to respond, and we're going to see that over the next couple of games. It's going to be a great series. I think we're going to get a good, entertaining game here on Monday. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really hope we do. The Lightning and the Hurricanes is a playoff series I want to see, and I want to see a tease of it in the regular season because we saw it in the 1-0 overtime game. I want to see a high octane, high scoring, back and forth game. Even if the Lightning lose, I want the process to be right. So we'll leave it at that. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Quick Strike. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell for more notifications. Comment down below what you thought of this video, whether you think we are just two crazy people that have no idea what we're talking about and the lighting are just doomed, or you agree with us. We'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts in the comments down below. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Bay_Bolts for your news, notes, and game recaps. Game recaps are done on Twitter, guys. Make sure to follow us there for interactive polls and articles and whatnot. If you haven't seen already, we've linked a couple of articles in the description down below to our website. It's definitely going to be a challenging season in terms of being able to come back from injuries and whatnot. But that is going to do it for us today in terms of talking about the Lightning. For Jake Ricker, I'm Michael Wax. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, despite the loss, the Tampa Bay Lightning are still the defending Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bolts.